Yesterday's win over the Phillies gave the Mets 9 victories in their last 12, and they now trail Montreal in the wild card race by only 4.5 as the Expos come to town. Pedro Martinez, 8-0 lifetime against New York, but on July 5 was lucky to escape with a no decision in a 9-6 Mets win. Tonight, Pedro faces Pete Harnisch, who goes on 3 days rest, as the Mets go for 5 in a row. The Mets and the Expos from Shea, next on 9. From Shea Stadium in Flushing, New York. Tonight, the New York Mets and the Montreal Expos open a 4-game series. Mets Baseball 96 is brought to you by your New York, New Jersey, Connecticut Nissan dealer. Nissan, it's time to expect more from a car. By Budweiser, official sponsor of the 1996 Olympic Summer Games. This Bud's for you. By Pizza Hut, proud sponsor of the New York Mets. You'll love the stuff we're made of. And by your Tri-State Jeep and Eagle dealer. The pitching matchup for the opener in this 4-game series, Pedro Martinez 7-4 for the Expos. Pete Harnisch on 3 days rest looks to improve a 5-6 mark.
On a hot and muggy evening here at Shea Stadium, the first of 4, the Mets and the Montreal Expos. And let's take a look back 2 weeks ago on July 4th. The New York Mets 10 games behind the Montreal Expos, and tonight, entering tonight's play for the National League wild card berth, the Mets only 4.5 back of Montreal. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another evening of Mets baseball. Tim McCarver and Gary Thorne here, and the Expos, a very important series, Gary. They are pitching perhaps one of the top right-handers in the National League, especially as far as the Mets are concerned.
Yeah, this guy the New York Mets have never beaten, even though in the last game they pitched well against him. 8-0 lifetime against the Mets with a tremendous ERA. Even better at Shea Stadium, where he's 4-0 and an ERA of about .31. Mets are 5-2, though, against the Expos this season. But, as Dallas Green says, first things first, we got to get to 500 baseball. And to do that, they need to have 3-4 wins, maybe a sweep in this series. They're 2 under right now. This is a tough start. I mean, this is a very tough pitcher. International competition in Atlanta, and as Ashley Dunn made this flag for me, she didn't realize there was going to be international competition at Shea Stadium, too.
The man can come up with some pins, can he? We'll be right back for the start of tonight's game right after this from Budweiser.
Welcome back to Shea, everybody, as we get set for this big series against Montreal. He was the National League's leading pinch hitter, batting .400 last season in that role. This year, he's already gone 5 for 8. Chris Jones is his name. CJ, we continually are amazed at your ability to come out and do that off the bench. How do you get it done?
I think it's more or less just knowing that, you automatically already beat. So you can start to say, forget it. Let me just go ahead and see the ball, and wherever I hit it, just let it fall. You don't put too much emphasis on your stance and stuff like that. Just keep it simple, just seeing a ball and hitting it.
Do you go through a process while the game's going on to keep yourself ready?
Yeah, usually what I do is I sit up front above the dugout, and I try to watch every motion the pitcher takes, his release point, and then try to visualize that. Close my eyes a couple times, look at him, and then close my eyes, him making a pitch, and just visualize where his release point is located.
Now, because you're not getting the at-bats, you're not getting the swings in game situations, what do you do to compensate for that?
I think I do a lot of running early, frustration, that gets that out, and a lot of swinging in the cage. That, you can swing and swing all day, but you gotta try to stay focused. You gotta focus and try to make a game situation every day.
CJ, I know I'm not going to let that pass when you say frustration. It is tough for you because while you've done the job as a pinch hitter, that's not where you want to be.
Oh, no. I mean, I think every player wants to be an everyday. Every baseball player wants to be an everyday player. I don't think anybody is just going to sit on, just be labeled one thing. I mean, I sign so many autographs, and people say, you're the best pitch hitter. But no, I want to be a real good baseball player altogether. You know, I like them to say, you're a good player. You know, so just saying you're a good pitch hitter. So I think that drives me more. The more I sign autographs, people say that, the more madder I get, and the more time, the more frustration I need to get out. So I'll do a lot more running early.
You got a lot of fire in your eyes, fella, and you are more than a good pinch hitter. You are a great one. Chris Jones, our guest, the leading pinch hitter in the National League. We will be back. Big series opening up against Montreal right after this from Infinity.
Tragedy in the skies last night. Flight 800, the TWA flight. 228 people tragically losing their lives, and the flag at half-mast this evening at Shea Stadium. Remembering perhaps the more important things in life. First to 4, Pete Harnisch against Pedro Martinez. And Pete going after victory number 6. The Expos beat Pete in the only game lost by the Mets to Montreal in that 4-game series right before the All-Star break. So Pete Harnisch will try to even his record against the Expos tonight. He is 1-1 this year and 3-3 lifetime against Montreal.
And the Expos lineup brought to you by Honda. It'll have Mark Rutzelanek leading it off at short, Mike Lansing at second base. Great 1-2 punch. Floyd in left field bats third. Darren Fletcher doing the catching. Henry Rodriguez, big home run hitter at first base. Rondell White's back. He didn't play in Montreal. F.P. Santangelo in right. Shane Andrews back at third. Pedro Martinez doing the pitching.
The defense for the Mets shows the normal Gilkey, Johnson, and Ochoa since Alex Ochoa came up on June 22nd. Edgardo Alfonso still in at third. Jeff Kent nursing the hamstring problem. Ray Ordonez at shortstop. Jose Vizcaíno at second. And Butch Husky with yesterday's game-winning RBI in the 9th inning at first. Todd Hundley behind the plate. The umpires for this evening's game, Gary Darling behind the plate. Charlie Relaford down at first. Jim Quick at second. And Dana DeMuth down at third. Felipe Alou has seen better days with his Expos. The Expos were 15 games over 500 in mid-May. They have fallen to 7 games over and allowed quite a few teams to narrow the gap in the wild card race, and it should be a very, very interesting mid-August and September, Gary, for the last 6 weeks of the season.
Now, Dallas saying, I don't want to hear anything about the wild card. He told the press yesterday, there's too much time left to go. There are too many games left to be played. I still want 500 first, then we'll worry about what comes next. So this series is the one that can make both of those things for him. They could get the 500, and they could really have a shot at the wild card.
Mark Grudzielanek to find shortstop, takes a strike from Pete Harnisch, and we're underway. Grudzielanek third in the National League in hits with 123. Good slider from Harnisch. 0-2 to Grudzielanek. Mark's nickname is Gruds. I can think of a lot better nicknames than Gruds. And the slider gets him. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night, says Harnisch. 1 out here in the first.
Now, Pete Harnisch asked to start this game. He went to Dallas and said, I want to pitch on 3 days rest. The second time he's done it this year. He in Dallas said, look, he threw 109 pitches in his last start. He's primarily a fastball pitcher. He said it's no big deal asking him to do it, and since he wants to do it, I want him in there. So there he is.
Used to be a common occurrence, pitchers working on 3 days rest, but not so anymore. Mike Lansing, the second baseman, takes a strike. 4 straight strikes to open this game. Mentioned that 1-2 punch. Grudzielanek and Lansing 1 and 2 for the Expos as far as batting average is concerned, and the slider is low, 1-1. Lined up the middle, base hit for Lansing. So the first base runner of the ball game, Lansing at first, a threat to steal. He has 13 stolen bases on the year. And the Expos will run, especially against Harnish. Pete very deliberate coming home. Todd Hundley, on the other hand, 18 for 68, caught stealing, a 27% average. But you'd have to believe that if Todd had a couple of left-handers in the rotation, that he would have a lot better shot at more base runners. Here's Cliff Floyd, the left fielder. 0-1 to Floyd.
Well, Todd is still at that major league average, in fact, a point above it. The major league average has slipped for catchers from 31% effective in throwing out base runners last year down to 25% at this point this season. There's more running. There are better base runners. And maybe most of all, Timmy, what you were just saying, pitchers do not hold base runners on anywhere near what they did even a decade ago.
Nope. They do not combat the stolen base. They work on it in spring training, but somehow forget about it during the season. And the splitter is outside. 1-1 to Cliff Floyd, who enters the game batting .292.
Series in Montreal, he hit the ball as hard as anybody on either team. His outs were screaming memes, and he rocketed some extra base hits. This is a tough contact hitter.
With power, with speed. You may remember back on May 15th when Todd Hundley was the runner. That was last year. In '95, he broke 8 bones in his hand. A fake break by Lansing. Ball 2 to Floyd, 2-1.
He never thought he'd play first base again, but he's ordered a new glove from one of the first base glove makers. He's playing in the outfield right now, but he says the way things are going, Ballou gets back off the DL, and I keep hitting. I got to go somewhere. I want to go somewhere. So I'm going to get a glove and go back to first.
Fouled away, 2-2. That's interesting because one player's plight is another player's opportunity. Rondell White was out on April 28th. That gave Floyd some playing time. And when Rondell White came back, Moises Alou pulled a hamstring, so Cliff Floyd has had a chance to be the regular left fielder. Speaking of regular first baseman, Rico Brogna. Operation on the right shoulder a couple of weeks ago, out for the season in all probability. There goes Lansing, and the slider hammered foul, still 2-2, so we'll do it again.
And another situation, just what we were saying, Timmy, one man's disaster is another man's opportunity. So Husky gets the first base position and all kinds of at-bats, which he would have lost but for the injury with Ochoa coming up playing in right field.
This the last 2 months could be a major thing in Butch Husky's year or career and year. Floyd is jammed, loops it toward the left field line. Ordonez waving Gilkey off to make the play. 2 outs. Say 5 or 6 years from now, if Butch Husky becomes a regular first baseman or a regular player, he'll look back on this 2-month period and realize how important it was for him to get some at-bats and to improve his average.
And to play some first base.
Yeah.
The opportunity to go down there and do it in real game situations was something that wasn't going to happen very often for Butch Husky, but on the rare occurrence. Instead, he's really had to work at it, and to his credit, he has.
As Ochoa was developing in the minor leagues, Husky was a fill-in at first, and when Ochoa came up, Brogna took over with the runner running. The ball plops in front of Lance Johnson. So Darren Fletcher with a hit. Expos with runners at the corners and 2 outs, and Henry Rodriguez coming up.
Kind of a strange reaction by Lance Johnson on this with a runner going. Lansing had to hold up at second base to see if it was going to be caught here. I don't know why he did that because there were 2 down, but he stopped at second base. Then Lance Johnson never got a break on that ball.
No, I don't think he saw the ball. Twilight time, I don't think he picked the ball up right away, Gary. Ball had a lot of hang time, though.
Would have been interesting if Lansing had just kept on going there. He slowed down. Maybe thought the ball was going to be caught and was just slowing down at second base.
So Henry Rodriguez, the batter, with 2 on here in the first inning. Swing and a miss, 0-1. Rodriguez stranding 15 base runners in the 4-game series in Montreal. His average way down to 273, and his home runs stay at about the mid-20s.
He's having bad at-bats now, and it's been going on for about 3 weeks.
Deep to right field. Ochoa over, and this ball is gone. Home run, Henry Rodriguez, 3-0 Montreal.
He had been having bad at-bats.
Yep. Looked like a fastball inside that Pete didn't get inside far enough. 3-0 Expos.
That is only his second home run since June 24th. He got one off Greg Maddux on the 15th of this month, a couple days ago. And he gets one here. And I mean, no question, it was right there.
Rondell White on the first pitch to Lance Johnson in center, and that'll end the inning, but the Expos explode for 3. Mets coming up after this from your New York, New Jersey, Connecticut Nissan dealer. Pedro Martinez 7-4, and he has absolutely dominated the Mets throughout his career. He had a 2-hitter against New York, going 6 1/3 of no-hit ball back on May 1st.
The lineup he'll face is brought to you by your Tri-State Quality Ford dealer. Dallas Green's Mets will have the hitman Lance Johnson leading it off. In center, Jose Vizcaino at second base. Bernard Gilkey batting third and left. Todd Hundley doing the catching cleanup. Butch Husky at first base fifth. Alex Ochoa in right field sixth. Edgardo Alfonso at third base batting seventh. Ray Ordonez the shortstop, and batting ninth Pete Harnisch.
So the Mets trailing 3-0 here in the first. Lance Johnson the batter. Popped up, foul territory. Grzelcyk over near the line in foul territory to make the play. So an out on a pitch here in the first. And Vizcaino coming up. The defense for the Expos: Cliff Floyd in left, Rondell White in center, F.P. San Angelo the right fielder, Shane Andrews at third, Mark Grzelcyk at short, Mike Lansing at second, Henry Rodriguez at first, and Darren Fletcher behind the plate. Jose Vizcaino batting .299, and he takes a fastball from Martinez. Breaking ball from Martinez, 0-2. Martinez features a fastball and perhaps the best changeup in the National League, especially the left-handed batters. Gets them going forward. And his curveball is third best pitch. That looked like a split finger fastball right there. 1 ball, 2 strikes to Vizcaino.
He has the unusual ability with a circle change that he throws to be able to cut both parts of the plate, somewhat like Maddux, Greg Maddux, who we've showed before how he is able to throw a pitch that cuts both corners. Well, with that circle change Martinez throws, he can do the same thing.
Ball and 2 strikes to Vizcaino here in the first. And the breaking ball hit to right field, base hit. So Vizcaino with a hit off Martinez with 1 out here in the first inning, and that'll bring up Bernard Gilkey. He said that Martinez was 8-0 against the Mets, but this is a tougher lineup for Martinez to face than he has been facing in past years and even the earlier part of this year. Mets trying to get on track. Martinez beating the Mets on May 1st, as we mentioned. But the Mets a much better team and a much better come-from-behind team right now. Swing and a miss by Gilkey.
Interesting, Timmy. Now they've got a 4-game win streak going here, and in all 4 of those games they came from behind to win. Not necessarily late in the game, but they did come from behind to win all 4 of them.
Behind 2-0 in yesterday's game to the Phillies. They scored 2 in the 7th, won it in the 9th. 0-2.
I don't think Bernard Gilkey's back is feeling very good. He is, the way he's been moving around, he had problems with it in the artificial carpet in Montreal. He's cut back on what he's doing pregame wise and just trying to rest it.
No balls, 2 strikes to Bernard Gilkey. Up and in, 1-2, and Martinez will do that. Martinez has been the subject of many bench-clearing brawls since going to Montreal.
Amazing thing is, he's only hit 2 guys this year. He's got some catching up to do.
1-2 to Gilkey. Foul back, 1-2. I guess the most notable hit batsman by Martinez a couple of years ago when he hit Reggie Sanders while pitching a perfect game. It was in the 8th inning, and Sanders charged the mound. He also worked 9 innings of perfect ball against Montreal last year, early in the season, and lost that game in the 10th inning. And the breaking ball just misses. That was against San Diego last year while pitching for Montreal. Tony Gwynn driving in the game-winning run as San Diego beat Montreal 1-0 in that game. But Martinez had worked 9 perfect innings. There's the changeup, and it got Gilkey 2 outs.
And that is all set up. Those last 2 pitches set up by the brushback pitch. I mean, that's the way it's supposed to be done. You get the hitter thinking about it, either getting leaning away or at least straighten him up a little so he's got no chance on pitches that are away. And Martinez, after he straightened Gilkey, came back with 2 breaking balls away.
Breaking ball away, and then the straight change to get his man. And Todd Hundley the batter. Todd only 3 for 17 on this homestand. That does include 2 home runs. Make it 3. Goodbye. As high as an elephant's eye.
He had one off the left-hander Terry Mulholland. He gets this one off the right-hander Martinez. 25 in the year, 70 RBIs, and way up and way out. Martinez has only given up 11 home runs this year, and that's only the 3rd to a left-hander.
Now a 3-2 ball game as Husky, the batter, swings at the breaking ball. Todd knew it too. Todd thinking when that ball comes down, it's going to be on the other side of the fence. Breaking ball hammered up the middle. So consider this, folks. Coming into this game, Pedro Martinez had given up 1 earned run for his career in this ballpark. That's 5 games covering 29 innings. And here in 2/3 of an inning tonight, he has given up 2 earned runs and 3 hits.
In his last 5 starts, his ERA has been 6.0. And he's only won 1 of those games.
So we talked about Martinez not facing the same Mets. They're a better team. Well, the Mets aren't facing the same Martinez either, as Ochoa steps up. Fouled away, 0-1. Alex recalled on the 22nd of June, about a month ago, and his numbers have just been staggering. Gambled with that one. Shane Andrews throws out Ochoa. But the Mets fight right back on the 2-run homer by Todd Hundley. It's 3-2 Montreal. We'll be back after this from Budweiser. John Franco hopes that he has a chance to pitch in this game, and if he does, he may be cleaning the dirt because of the ball that landed hit by Todd Hundley. F.P. San Angelo on the first pitch flies to right field, and Alex Ochoa makes the play. 1 out here in the second.
Number 11, third baseman Shane Andrews.
There's the garden that's been here for a long time. The bullpen takes care of it. I'm not even sure what they've got in there this year. It's like some cabbage. Usually have tomatoes there down the other end, I guess. Done a real good job there.
Yeah.
I think Swish, the bullpen coach, is handling that on the daily task of gardening.
Shane Andrews fouls it back. 0-1 to Shane. There's the commander in charge of the bullpen.
And that's Green Gardner right there.
I don't know really what that means when a catcher has a green thumb. They have jam thumbs, they have broken thumbs, but a green thumb? 1-1 to Shane Andrews. I'm not trying to, this is not a self-serving remark, as Andrews takes outside with a slider, but 2 years ago during the strike, that's one thing that I became interested in that I never thought I would be interested in, and that was gardening. Weeding, not really keen on weeding. Ordonez tried the in-between hop for the stop. He stopped it but didn't catch it. So an infield hit, I would think, by Shane Andrews.
Knew what he wanted to do, but just couldn't get it done. You'll see he's going to try and make that big round motion with his glove to come up with the ball a la Ozzie and then make the throw on it, but couldn't handle it cleanly that time, and it will be a base hit.
Yeah, that's really all Ray could do in that situation. So Ray doing a little weeding of his own there at shortstop, as Pedro Martinez will be the batter, probably up there to bunt. And he bunts through it. And it's a strike. Alfonso right on top of Martinez. So 0-1 to Martinez, who has 10 sacrifices on the year, trailing only Tommy Glavine and Ismael Valdez of the Dodgers. Glavine with 13 sacks. Valdez with 11. The bunt's a beauty. Hundley will have to go to first base to make the play. So 11 sacks on the year for Martinez. Andrews at second, and Mark Grudzielanek, the shortstop, coming up.
Great bunt. Talking about deadening the ball when you get the bunt down. That's what he does right there. No chance to do anything except make the play at first base. Could have run a little more inside and tried to have the ball hit him, but he's got a pitch.
Well, if he did that, of course, Andrews would have to retreat to first. So he realized it was a good bunt. Grudzielanek, a strikeout victim in the first inning. Slider misses, ball 1. Does not look like Harnish has his best stuff tonight. He is not throwing hard. This is the 7th time in his career that Pete has pitched on 3 days rest. And the slider is in the dirt. Ball 2. 2-0 to Grudzielanek. Gary, you mentioned that he pitched on 3 days rest against Atlanta. Lost that game 4-3. Pitched well. That was back on the 11th of June. So this is the second time that he has done it. Before this year, the last time he pitched on 3 days rest back in 1992. Fastball in there. Grudzielanek thought it was high. 2-1, however, to Mark Grudzielanek.
I'm
3-2
sure
Expos.
one of the reasons that Dallas Green did not hesitate to let Pete do this is the way the bullpen's been performing. If he needs help, the bullpen now seemingly is capable of providing it. They've done a great job here of late. So he can put Harnish out there and not have to expect beyond 5-6 innings.
Another nice play by Hundley. And Harnish falls behind Grudzielanek. 3-1. 2 outs, 1 on, 3-2 Expos. All of the runs scored in the first inning. The long ball. Henry Rodriguez, a 3-run homer, and Hundley, a 2-run shot. Fly ball, right field. Ochoa racing back to make the play. The Expos fail to score. Still 3-2 Montreal. Gary and I will be back after this from Nobody Beats the Wiz. Well, a brightly clad young lass there. Very colorful and pretty dress. On a hot and humid night here at Shea, about 20,000 on hand to see the first of 4. And the first pitch to Edgardo Alfonso, inside and high. Edgardo batting .255. He has played sparingly this year. And he fouls it back. 1-1 to Edgardo Alfonso. Inside, ball 2, 2 balls and a strike. Change up, grounded up the middle. Grudzielanek throws out Alfonso. 1 out here in the second inning. Ray Ordonez coming up. Hey, Mets fans, this break in the action is brought to you by Budweiser. Now's the time to enjoy that crisp, clean Budweiser taste. This Bud's for you. Ray Ordonez has scored 5 runs in the last 5 games, a run a game, and he takes a breaking ball for a strike. Ray back up to 263 after falling below the 250 mark. Ground ball left side. Shane Andrews guns out Ordonez. 2 outs here in the second. Pete Harnish coming up.
Shane Andrews had an interesting situation. His grandfather passed away while the Mets were in that series in Montreal, and he went to his grandfather's funeral, but he didn't return when he said he was going to. And Felipe Alou was publicly upset. Said, I do not understand why he said he was coming back and didn't. He doesn't want to play here. He ought to say something. I mean, really strident comments about Andrews being away as long as he was.
He was gone for 4 days and then missed the All-Star break. So if you're going to your grandfather's funeral, you go to his funeral and then you come back and play. Exactly. Unless there are other things involved. And it's 1-1 to Pete Harnish. Pete with a new batting stance, emulating, perhaps, Andres Galarraga of the Rockies until he swings.
I suspect if we put side-by-sides on this, the comparison would end.
Leiter is inside, 2-2. Even though Pete, he went 0 for his first 18, but he's 4 for his last 10. So I don't understand this this particular stance, however.
Worried about getting hit by Martinez?
No, Pete doesn't worry about things like that. Ground ball, third base. Andrews again. Throws out Harnish. Perhaps that was modeled after his fishing for shark during the All-Star break. I have to ask him that. We'll be back after this from Powerade. Hot, sticky, muggy, first of 4. Mets and the Expos. A 3-run homer by Henry Rodriguez in the top of the first. Todd Hundley countered for the Mets. with a 2-run shot. Jose Vizcaíno scoring in front of Todd. It's 3-2. Pete Harnish against Pedro Martinez. Mike Lansing, the batter, he scored ahead of Rodriguez's 27th home run of the year in the first inning. He singled and scored. Talk about leaders in the National League. From what I've observed, this guy is one of the true leaders on a ball club. A lot of guys take that role because they're older, as Mike takes a strike. Older, a little experience, gregarious, animated type guys, and guys say they're automatically leaders. Well, Lansing is, as he flies to Johnson. 1 out. Best leader, or certainly one of the best leaders I've ever seen on any ball club, Keith Hernandez with the Mets back in the middle 80s. Cliff Floyd, the batter. He popped to short his first at bat and takes ball 1. Thing about Hernandez, he carried that leadership on the field. He was a real general. And Floyd hammers one past the diving Husky. So Cliff Floyd picks up Montreal hit number 5. He's at first with 1 out. Darren Fletcher, the catcher, coming up.
Sir Alex Ochoa do something that base runners have to be aware of with that great arm in right field. Floyd thought about taking that big wide turn, as a lot of base runners do, even when they have no intention of going. Ochoa held on to the ball after he picked it up and made Floyd come back as he faked the throw in. We'll see Ochoa do that, I suspect, before this season's over. Catch somebody.
There is a play designed by the catcher to trail the hit into right field, and we'll tell you about it after this pitch. The first baseman, especially after a diving attempt on a play like that, allows the ball to go through, enticing the base runner to make the wide turn. The catcher follows him down, and the catcher becomes the first baseman. And the right fielder throws behind the runner. That is a designed play. I haven't seen it in years, but that's what we were trained to do on balls like that. The base runner sees the first baseman on the ground, and because of that, he realizes nobody's there. And the catcher trails him down, and if he takes too wide a turn, you throw him out, throw the ball behind the runner. Fletcher to right field. Ochoa on his horse to make the play, and the throw back into Husky is wide, but he had plenty of backup guys, and there are 2 outs.
Long run for Alex Ochoa. Ball held up on him here. Not only did it end up in foul territory, but didn't go as deep as it looked like it might off the bat. Makes the catch. Ball was in foul territory when he caught it, and he tried again at first base, thinking Floyd might be wandering away a little bit.
Looked like he slipped on that loose dirt down there, and may have
Wrenched his shoulder a little.
strained something.
See him looking over again where he threw the ball from.
Henry Rodriguez, a 3-run homer his first time up, takes ball 1. Yeah, that back foot slipping, causing the errant throw, and Alex with a bit of a strain as the fastball is outside to Henry Rodriguez, 2-0.
I'd like to see that. Well, that can really do a number on your shoulder and arm. You wound up to set the muscles in one direction, and they get all messed up. Two and 1 to Rodriguez. We're going to throw that graphic back up there. Henry Rodriguez this year having more home runs on May 31st than any player in Major League history. The reason for that, however, is that the season started earlier than any other time in Major League history. Not trying to take anything away from the record, but just trying to be factual. Season, you may remember, started on March 31st this year. 3-1 to Rodriguez. And he was a surprise player. And again, he had pitchers who just did not look at him as being that kind of a home run hitter.
That's a good point.
Nobody
yeah,
thought
true.
coming into the season
Yeah.
Henry Rodriguez was going to be leading the league in home runs at any point or even close to it.
He pops this one up. Shallow left. Ordonez back. Gilkey waving it off. And he drops the ball. Gilkey drops the ball. The throw to second, not in time as Floyd scores. And it's now 4-2 Montreal. No excuse right there. Twilight's gone.
A very costly error. A routine play, a very high fly ball. Harnish thought it was popped up in the infield. It wasn't. And clearly Ordonez backs off well ahead of time. It sure looked like he lost it at the last end of it, though. Went right off the heel of the glove.
Yeah, I don't think he lost that ball. I think he had it all the way. I think that's just a boot. I think Pete Harnish lost it, but I just don't think twice. See, he's right there. You know, he tries to one-hand it. On a ball like that, if you two-hand it, you do make sure. Nonetheless, he dropped the ball, an error on Bernard Gilkey. Cliff Floyd scored. Rodriguez goes to second, and Rondell White takes ball one. Two and 0. I mean, usually if you lose a ball on that way down, you're doing something with your head, you know, to show that that you lost the ball. I mean, the way I saw it, it just looked like he bobbled it. Already costly. Harnish trying to minimize it. 2-1 to Rondell White.
I thought what reason I thought he lost it is when he played it on the side. He is not somebody who generally makes catches on the side of the body. He usually takes it straight up as you normally would when you can get under it. But I mean, he was looking right straight up. It just went off the heel of the glove.
Off the webbing of the glove of Hundley, and that's probably going to go as a pass ball. The Mets catchers have the fewest pass balls in the National League. They only have 2. Maine with 1, Hundley with 1, but that's going to be another one on Todd Hundley.
This is kicking the butt time. What's going on here? I mean, this is a big game. This is the kind of stuff the Mets were doing a month ago. Don't know.
3-1 to White. This one lifted right field. Ochoa over. And he makes the play. The Expos scoring an unearned run. It is 4-2 Montreal. We go to the bottom of the third after this from Chrysler. Now you can see the anger in Bernard Gilkey's eyes. It's 4-2. That unearned run scoring because Bernard dropped the ball. Pete Harnish tapping Bernard on the leg. And then later, another exchange between Harnish and Gilkey. And the fastball, a strike to Lance Johnson as the Mets trail by 2.
Coming back, tell him, look, you'll get it back at the plate for me.
Loop to left field. Floyd is over, and he makes the play. 1 out here in the third inning. You know, you hear so often about a one-handed catch in the outfield. I think if you're trying to catch a fly ball, you should use 2 hands if you have the time. Sometimes you don't have the time. An over-the-shoulder catch where you have to track a ball down, for instance. However, there are other situations where it's not proper to use 2 hands. Jose Vizcaíno, the batter, he singled and scored in front of Hundley's home run. Up the middle, Lansing. Good play. 2 outs. The way that an outfielder charges the ball to make a throw, he uses the shovel approach by scooping the ball with his glove. Say he's a right-handed thrower. You one-hand it on the side of your body. You bring the glove and ball back to your right hand. They call it the shovel. So on fly balls, yes, it's proper to use 2 hands. But on ground balls, if you're trying to throw a runner out, at the plate or at a base, you use one hand and bring the ball to your right shoulder. 1-1 to Gilkey. Ground ball, foul. So Bernard, a strikeout victim his first time up. 2 quick outs here in the 3rd inning, 6 in a row, retired by Pedro Martinez. 4-2 Expos. Gilkey has been a model of consistency all year long. Outside with a fastball, 2-2 to Bernard. And he got him with the fastball. Second strikeout for Martinez. The Mets go in order. It is still 4-2 Expos. We're back after this from your local Dodge dealer. Expos up by 2. A 3-run homer by Henry Rodriguez. And Cliff Floyd scoring on an error by Bernard Gilkey. And the Mets scoring their 2 runs. A 2-run shot by Todd Hundley. His 25th home run of the year, and in to call it for you, Gary Thorne.
We go to the top half of the 4th inning, and F.P. Santangelo will be coming up. Santangelo working in right field in this game and flied out to right field his first time up. Bottom 3rd of the order, Andrews and Martinez will follow. 12-game road trip, longest of the season for this team. Can your barber do that? Will your mother let your barber do that? Pete Harnisch with a breaking ball, and it's inside. Santangelo batting at .269. Expos have lost their last 2 games and have only won 2 of their last 10. 7 above 500, though, after the outstanding start that they got. They find themselves 9 games behind Atlanta, and like the New York Mets, looking more to the wild card spot than they are at the top of the division. 1-1 delivery, chopped on the breaking ball to first. Husky just a step beyond the bag, hauls it in. And Tangelo's retired, and there's one away here in the 4th. A lot more baseball action to come, so don't go away. Sit back, relax, and open a nice cold Beechwood 8 Budweiser. This Bud's for you. Harnisch with 1 down and nobody on. Andrews had a single his first time up. Pete with a career mark of teams winning 4 of the 6 games he started on 3 days rest, although he didn't win all of them. Harnisch trying to do it here against Montreal to open up this series. That's will have Isringhausen, Wilson, and Clark making the starts in that order against Cormier, Urbina, and Fasaro. Andrews on the inside pitch fouls it off. 1-1. Payne Andrews, 11 home runs for him and 39 RBIs. That's the reason his skipper wanted him in the lineup. Not only is the starting 3rd baseman defensively they need him, but he had some offense towards the bottom part of the order. Harnisch with a breaking ball and a good one. 1 ball, 2 strike count. Andrews 2 for 6 lifetime against Pete Harnisch. Outfield plays him to pull and a couple of steps back. 1-2 delivery. Straight back off the fist. Take a look at our National League scoreboard. The Padres have ended Colorado's 8-game win streak.
Because the Rockies went on the road.
Danger for Colorado, and they go on the road. And as a result, San Diego's moves back into first place. That'll depend on what Los Angeles does at San Francisco tonight. Braves, of course, have started their road trip of road trips for the Olympics to get out of town. Our Toyota American League scoreboard. A 2-ball, 2-strike count on Andrews. Red Sox, one of the hottest teams going, trying to keep it alive against Baltimore, that's fallen way behind the Yankees, who take on Milwaukee. Towering fly ball to right center. It's very playable. Ochoa and Johnson. Where? They lost it, and it falls in, and down to second base goes Andrews. There's something wrong up there for Mets outfielders. They both came over and they both started looking at one another, and Andrews is on with a double, probably.
Pitcher,
Nobody got close.
Alex Ochoa can't find it, and now Lance Johnson tries to make the play. I think it's going to be called a base hit. No, it hasn't been scored yet. But that adds more validity to your thought about Bernard Gilkey and less to my thought about Bernard Gilkey when Gilkey dropped the ball. But it seems to me that is dark enough right now to where they shouldn't be losing the ball.
And Martinez drives it to right field. Ochoa, runner will tag up here. Ochoa drops it in the seats.
What is going on here?
He got there in plenty of time and wasn't running into the railing, and it went right off the end of his glove.
Now they credit Shane Andrews with a base hit. That is very liberal. And now Ochoa allows the ball to go into the stands.
That could be called an error.
It should be an error. They haven't given one yet, but that should be, and it's being flashed right now.
There's another error on the Mets, the second of the game, keeping the at-bat alive for Pedro Martinez. Martinez 4 for 36 at a sacrifice his first time up. He's hitting away again and fouls that one back. So a 2-strike count on him. Todd Hundley at home plate looking up in the air.
Now, wait a minute. Now,
Maybe we're missing something here.
Todd looking up in the air. Now, that certainly can't be responsible for Todd's pass ball. I mean, he didn't have the sky as the background.
I have no idea. An 0-2 count on Martinez. Runner at second base. 4-2 Expos lead. One down here. Martinez now trying to move a runner up. Fouls it back. 0-2 count on him. It's not Friday yet, is it? It's not the 13th anyway.
No,
I don't know. Shane Andrews at second base. See the outfield pulled way around to right field. And he takes the strike. 2 strikeouts for Harnish in the game. Martinez heads back. That'll bring up Mark Grudzielanek. Harnish will try and get him out and hold this to a 4-2 Expo lead. Grudzielanek already 0 for 2, is in an 0 for 11 funk right now, even though he's 3rd in the league in hits and 8th in the league in average. And he has done real damage against the Mets this season. Coming into this series hitting .452 off New York pitching. But he's 0 for 2 in this one. Harnish with a fastball. Mark Grudzielanek. People still can't spell it, but they are learning how to pronounce it.
Gruds.
0-1 delivery to him. Grudzielanek fouls it off outside of third, and Harnish is ahead on the count 0-2. Big RBI opportunity here. Already been 1 unearned run in this game, and Andrews is on at second base because of an error. Harnish the 0-2.
That's why Grudzielanek has 123 hits. Count 0-2. He tries to fire one to right. Fastball away. Hitters just have to adapt from offensive situations to defensive situations, just like armies have to do it.
Forward, the 0-2. Good breaking ball. Did he go? Yes. Charlie Relaford at first base. Harnish comes through. 3 strikeouts, leaving a runner stranded at second. Expos still have the lead. Now this from Nobody Beats the Wiz. This is Mother Harnish making the rounds in the dugout.
Well, he does. He goes to all of the outfielders. There he is with Bernard Gilkey. That's last inning after the error. And now, after Alex Ochoa's era, there's Lance Johnson, there's Gilkey, Lance Johnson, and now Ochoa. Call it Mother Harnish, huh? To try to calm the nerves. Then he's laughing about it.
Covered his whole outfield. Here's Todd Hundley, who delivered the big blow for the Mets, his 25th home run with Vizcaino aboard in the first inning. Mets with 3 hits in the game. Todd with 25 homers now and 70 RBIs. He's all ready to move into the top 10 in that RBI category. And with the 25 homers, he continues to be 5th in the league in home runs. Sosa, Piazza, Rodriguez, and Sheffield ahead of Todd Hundley. But not by much. Sammy Sosa with 30 leading the league.
Don't think the guys don't appreciate that, too. I mean, it's their errors. The guy who is affected the most, Pete Harnish, is patting them on the back. Don't think outfielders don't appreciate that, because all pitchers aren't like that. Believe me.
Here's the 0-2 delivery. He had to reach for that one and pops it up. Short of third. Solanic wants it and puts it away. Hundley's retired. 1 down. This copyrighted telecast authorized under television rights granted by Sterling WWOR Enterprises solely for the entertainment of our audience. Any publication, reproduction, or use of the pictures, descriptions, and accounts of this game without the express written consent of Sterling WWOR Enterprises is prohibited. Any commercial or other use of the program, such as by charging admission for its showing, is likewise prohibited. Great to have you with us on this Thursday night. Gary Thorne, Tim McCarver. And Mets in Montreal open a big one. Husky to center field, back on it. Rondell White. It's off the wall. White plays it well. But Husky will go in with a double. 2 for 2.
Longer the season goes, the more comfortable Butch Husky appears at the plate. He is swinging much more naturally now with that closed stance. He really unloads on this ball over the head of Rondell White. And Butch in with double number 11 on the year.
Alex Ochoa takes the pitch outside. Of the clutch hitters for the New York Mets this season, Ochoa is putting himself right up there at the top. Not only has he had incredible numbers overall at .345 and against right-handed hitters, but Ochoa's got a .583 average with runners in scoring position. That one towards the hole. Grusolanic over. Runner holds. Throw. Great play. Mark Grusolanic denies Ochoa a base hit and holds the base runner. Husky at second.
That is just a terrific play by Grusolanic. Not that he came up with the ball, but that his throw is so strong after he does it. That's just a brilliant athletic play by Grusolanic. I'll tell you what Mets base runners can do, however. They can be a little more aggressive on the bases. When a shortstop has to go that far to his right to make that play, you know that you can't go through. You've got to make the ball go through, but you can go a little bit off the bag. When he makes the play, then you go to third base. You go after the throw.
Take advantage of what's there.
Yeah.
Fouled off here. Runner on at second base still. Now there were 2 down for Edgardo Alfonzo. Grounded out his first time out. Grusolanic leads National League shortstops in assists for 9 innings this year. Plays like that put him ahead of others. And the pitch is inside by Pedro Martinez. Martinez not piling up the Ks as he usually does. He's 4th in the league in strikeouts. He has only 2 in this game. Alfonso's got Husky on at second base with 2 down. Mets trailing 4-2. Expos out hitting New York 6-4 at the moment.
I think that the Expos scouting report says to pitch Alfonso inside. Martinez has tried to come inside 3 times. That is where you go to get him out. That fastball up and in. He likes the ball away.
Here's the 1-1 by Martinez. Got that one out a little bit. Fouled off down the line and into the seats. But he definitely is bearing it in on the hands. 1 ball, 2 strike count.
Yeah, that's 3 straight strikes inside, or 3 straight pitches inside. All you have to do is look at your catcher to see where pitchers are trying to pitch a guy, and Fletcher's been inside all 3 pitches. Now they may go back outside. We'll see.
Husky making his way off second. One, 2 the count, 2 down. Tried to get him to chase one away with that breaking ball, but he didn't. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Martinez, a predominant fly ball pitcher, as is Pete Harnisch. Pete's had more fly ball outs than anybody else, so we may get those outfielders staring up a lot. Back inside to him, left field. Floyd going back near the warning track, and hauls it in. You could put together a film of outfield play so far in this ball game and call it a comedy. Now this word from Mobile. Montreal with a 4-2 lead. This game is being brought to you by Nobody Beats the Wiz Total Home Entertainment Centers, and by your Tri-State Toyota dealer. I love what you do for me, Toyota. 4-2 lead for the Montreal Expos. The top half of the 5th inning. Pete Harnisch no walks, 3 strikeouts, including 2 in the last inning. Mike Lansing 1 for 2. First ball hitting down to third. Alfonso was in, makes the play, and gets it. Right on the grass that time. The ball hit right at Alfonso on the first pitch. So Lansing out of there. And Floyd, who had a single in the 3rd and came around to score. 1 for 2 in the ball game. Pete threw 109 in his last start. Remember, he's working on 3 days rest. He takes the inside breaking ball for a strike. Floyd has been one of their hotter hitters of late. Giving up some good numbers with the Lou out of the lineup. And then, as Timmy said, while White was out of the lineup, same thing. 367 over his last 8 starts.
The home plate umpire Gary Darling working the slot between the catcher and the batter. National League umpires have always called balls and strikes from that position.
And he got him. That's 4.
See, that is a slot where he has a good shot at the inside pitch and also a good shot at the outside pitch, and he really stayed with that outside fastball. Watch Gary Darling actually moving with Todd Hundley. Hundley moved out there. He moved out there. And the pitch right on the corner.
Well, Harnisch working or trying to work quickly through this inning, has 2 down in a hurry. And Darren Fletcher singled and scored ahead of Rodriguez on the home run in the 1st inning. Puts this one to left for a base hit. Gilkey, who is deep on him, will move in. And the 2nd hit for Darren Fletcher, the catcher, 2 for 3. This one comes with 2 down.
The reason I bring that up about the umpires, the National League umpires have always worked that seam between the catcher and the hitter. When the American League umpires used to have the balloon, the big chest protector that was outside, it was about 4 inches thick, made of foam rubber and springs and that. They would stand behind the catcher, and that made the American League umpires call the high pitch more because they really had no good shot at the low pitch. But you see how that work in the slot really gives an umpire a view of the ball down in the strike zone. That's why the National League has always been a good low ball league as far as umpires are concerned, because they have a better shot at it than American League umpires.
Rodriguez fights it off, taking the count to a ball and a strike with 2 down, and a runner on at first base. 27th home run. Picked up in that 1st inning to put him out on top 3-0. 1-1 count here, not holding the base runner. And the pitch is taken up high. 2 balls and 1 strike. Rodriguez also has piled up the Ks. He's leading the National League now in strikeouts. A lot of those have come over the last 3 weeks in his struggle at the plate. Down the left field line this time, and it's 2-2. Fletcher at first. Husky saying just close enough to keep him close, then backing off. 2-2, and he got just enough to stay alive. Foul tipped it. Fifth major league season for Rodriguez, who, of all people, probably, along with the rest of the world, never dreamed he'd be producing the power numbers he is this year. Not that he hasn't had some in the past, but nowhere near what he's done this year.
He's really had the opportunity more than anything else this year.
Takes that one to the gap in left center field. Gilkey going back, over, reaching up, can't get it off the top of the wall. Making the turn, Fletcher at third. He'll be held up. And a stand-up double, but not an RBI as Rodriguez goes into second base.
Center fielder.
Fine play by Bernard Gilkey to get rid of the ball in a hurry to Ray Ordonez. Watch how quickly Gilkey makes this pivot in position there, and a fine cutoff throw, and then Ordonez's throw is low, but Fletcher was already being held at third by Jerry Manuel, the third base coach.
26th double of the year for top 10 in that department, as he ranks 6th in doubles. Now a big out right here that Harnish needs. 2 in scoring position, and Rondell White. And it's bounced, and good play by Hundley to squeeze it.
That does not look like the Rondell White batting stance that we've seen in past years. Out for 2 months. Injured himself running into the wall, making a catch in Atlanta. That's not his normal stance right there. Too rigid.
Just returned on Tuesday to the lineup in the Atlanta Braves series. Had a double in his first at bat. Went 1 for 3 in his return.
Almost like spring training for Rondell. His manager calls him Thunder Hands. What a great talent he is.
Playing in just his 26th game. He's got Fletcher at third. Rodriguez at second base. 2 down. 2-0 count. And that's drilled and caught by Edgardo Alfonzo in the short hop. Makes the throw and gets it. So Harnish working his way out of that one with help from Edgardo Alfonzo. He's working his way now around the infield, shaking hands. We'll be back after this from your Tri-State Toyota dealer. That's with chances in this ball game, down by only 2. They have stranded 5. Couple left on for 5 left on for Montreal, rather. Couple left on for the New York Mets. We go to the bottom half of the 5th inning, and Tim McCarver back.
All right, Gary, thank you very much. The 3-run homer by Rodriguez, the big blow in this game. Ray Ordonez leads it off. Ray grounded to third his first at bat. And the slider misses outside. Ball 1 to Ray. There's a strike. 1-1 to Ray Ordonez. Ground ball up the middle, slowed down by Grudzielanek. The throw to first, not in time. An infield hit for Ray Ordonez.
Good play by Grudzielanek to get over and make a throw on this as it hits the mound. Otherwise, it really would have gone through, but you saw it scatter the dust. That slowed it down enough for the shortstop to make the play, but Ordonez too fast, beats it out.
I thought that ball hit Martinez's glove, and it appeared that it hit the mound, top of the mound, to slow it down. Just missed the glove, hit the mound, slowed down, and Ordonez with an infield hit. And Pete Harnish tries to bunt, fouls it back. 0-1 to Pete, who was 0 for 1 in this game. Not trying to make too much of it, but trying to give you a source of reference. We mentioned Gary Darling, the home plate umpire, working the slot even on the bunt play. National League style. Harnish to bunt again, pushes it toward first. It almost, Henry Rodriguez almost running by the bunt. So the sacrifice successful.
Boy, was that a challenge by Andrews. The third baseman was literally standing 4 steps away from Pete Harnish, forcing him to bunt to first. So he did, and he almost got a base hit, just snagged by Rodriguez, who has to make an off-balance throw.
So the sacrifice successful. That'll bring up Lance Johnson. Oh, he saw Gary Darling in the slot, and our guys, as they always do, have really come to the fore once again. 69 World Series. We talked about the bubble protector and how the umpires worked over the catcher. That's Elrod Hendricks as the batter. But that gives you an idea of how umpires in the American League work. You could tell that was an American League umpire working behind the catcher, and here Darling working the slot. And Johnson takes ball 1. 1-0 to Lance Johnson.
That chest protector was so big there was no choice.
No way. There was no way to get the low pitch if you were a pitcher in the American League until about 10 years ago, when the American League umpires went to the inside protectors. 1-1 to Johnson.
It's much more stylish.
Look much better. Not to the point where you want to wear it away from the ballpark, however.
No, not a lot anyway.
Not unless you go to bad places after the game. You frequent places that you shouldn't be in. Maybe you should wear the inside protector.
Where can you buy those?
2 balls and 1 strike, just in case, huh?
I don't need a case, just a couple.
2-1 to Johnson. 1 out, 1 on. Ground ball right side. Mike Lansing throws out Johnson. So Lance 0 for 3 as Ordonez moves to third, and Jose Vizcaíno the batter. Paul Byrd is up and throwing in the Met bullpen. Could be after 3 days rest that Pete Harnish is right around his pitch limit. And when he gets there in the 6th inning, Byrd perhaps could be the new pitcher. Mets need some runs in the meantime. Vizcaíno a single, and he scored in front of Hundley's 2-run homer, and he lifts one to left, playable. Cliff Floyd makes the play, and the Mets threaten they do not score in the 5th inning. It's Montreal 4 and New York 2. We go to the 6th after this from your local Dodge dealer. 4-2 Montreal, the first of 4. These two teams back at each other tomorrow night. Raul Cormier against Jason Isringhausen as FP San Angelo takes a strike from Pete Harnish. High and tight, 1-1 to San Angelo. 7:40 game tomorrow night, then 7:05 on Saturday. Ugaith Urbina against Paul Wilson. Jeff Facero against Mark Clark on Sunday to wrap it up. Fly ball center field, easy play for Johnson. 1 out here in the 6th. Take a look at our new Dodge quiz. Who leads the majors in hits during the 90s? And Gary and I have to once again disqualify ourselves because we saw the answer on the screen before the game on our isolated monitor. So you are dealing with honorable broadcasters, folks. Not going to fool you. Can't even guess tonight.
Wade Boggs was the first name that came to mind before the answer suddenly popped up on the viewing screen. It's not him.
And as we both know, not even close.
Not even close.
I guess because of that bad year that Boggs had when it was, I think, 1991 when he had 259 for the Red Sox. Shane Andrews, count even at 1-1. He's 2 for 2. A double that was lost in the gloaming by Lance Johnson and/or Alex Ochoa, and an infield hit. 2 balls and a strike to Andrews. Honest to a fault we are, Gary.
Well, the fault part's right.
2-2 to Andrews.
See, they just put it up there again. I think they thought we forgot. See, we have this little viewing screen next to us where we see things before they go on the air. A lot of things that'll never get on the air, for that matter.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Definitely true. A lot of things we'd like to put on the air, but can't if we want to stay on the air.
2-2 to Shane Andrews. We're in the 6th. 4-2 Montreal. Up the middle, base hit for Andrews. So another hit for the Montreal third baseman. He is 3 for 3 on the night.
Pitcher Pedro Martinez.
Arnish tried to make a kick save and missed. Fortunately for him, he's not afraid. Barehanded, legs, anything close that he can knock down, he tries to, and tried to kick that one with his back leg, but it went by.
Yeah, Pete Harnish, you believe in reincarnation, and Pete may be back for the second time. His first time may have been a member of Braveheart, Mel Gibson's troupe. What a great movie that was. 1-0 to Pedro Martinez. Kind of typifies Pete Harnish, Braveheart.
One of the reasons Dallas was more than willing to let him pitch tonight.
Yeah.
Big series, tough pitcher against them.
Martinez, another bunt. Harnish will throw him out. Vizcaíno covering, so that's 12 sacrifices on the year for Pedro Martinez. There are now 2 outs. Shane Andrews at second and Mark Grudzielanek, the shortstop, the batter. Mark is 0 for 3 on the night. Expos started their road trip down in Atlanta. They lost both games. Off day yesterday. So this is the 3rd game of a 12-game road trip for Montreal. 1-0 to Mark Grudzielanek. Tap toward third. Tough play. Alfonso, the bare hand. Got him. What a play by Edgardo Alfonso to get the speedy Mark Grudzielanek. Still 4-2 Expos. We're back after this from your Tri-State Toyota dealer. Good play. Bernard Gilkey, the first batter in the bottom of the 6th inning. He takes a slider for a strike. Greg Pavlik, the pitching coach of the Mets, talking to Pete Harnish to determine how far he can go with him or whether to take him out right now. 1-1 to Gilkey. Bernard has struck out 2 times. Ball and 2 strikes to Bernard. Tapped foul. Martinez has only 2 strikeouts on the night, both Bernard Gilkey. What are the odds of that happening? Bernard in the hole. 1 ball, 2 strikes to Gilkey. 4-2 Expos. We're in the bottom of the 6th. High, ball 2, 2-2. Fastball blown right by him. So 3 strikeouts for Martinez. 1 out here in the 6th. Todd Hundley coming up. Mets need some hits, and let's take a look at our new Dodge quiz. Who leads the majors in hits during the 90s? And now we can tell you, Paul Molitor. Paul Molitor, who will turn 40 on August the 22nd, leads the majors with 1,163 hits in the 90s as Todd Hundley takes ball 1. Todd, a 2-run shot in the first, his 25th. Outside with the fastball, 2-0 to Todd Hundley.
Just checking, Timmy, on Gilkey now. That's 2 for 14 in his career against Martinez, and he has struck out 6 times.
Wow.
Those 14 at bats. So Martinez really has been a huge problem for Gilkey in his career.
And it's 3 balls and no strikes to Todd Hundley. Martinez has walked none in this game. And Hundley takes a strike. 3-1 to Todd. Fouls one off the other way. 3-2 now to Todd Hundley. He'll get a changeup here. He threw in 3 of 4 changeups his last at bat after he hit the high fastball out in the first inning. Jumping on the first pitch. Change, hit to right, base hit. That's where Todd Hundley has matured this year in pitch counts
First baseman,
and in remembering how a guy's trying to get him out. That straight change, rifle to right.
You talk about having an idea when you go up there. That's what we're talking about. A hitter who goes up thinking about the at-bat, what he's seen before, what he's likely to see this time, what he wants to look for to hit when he starts, what he wants to do later in the count, all that going on after each pitch.
Now, Butch Husky is 2 for 2 on the night, and the fastball on the corner, strike 1. Good fastball for Martinez. Butch looking down at Coach Mike Cubbage at third. Nothing to look for here. You're on your own. Change up, lifted to left field. Cliff Floyd in. And he makes the play. There are 2 outs now in the 6th, and Alex Ochoa coming up.
right fielder Alex Ochoa.
Alex is grounded to short. He's grounded to third. Tim McCarver, Gary Thorne on a hot and muggy evening at Shea Stadium. Supposed to be thunderstorms later on this evening. They'll blow out tomorrow. Blow some of that humidity out of here. Supposed to be a gorgeous night tomorrow night. Fastball is low to Alex Ochoa. And if you have not made plans to come out and see Raul Cormier, the left-hander, face Jason Isringhausen, Shea Stadium would be a nice place to spend your weekend. The Mets 27-20 at home. They have played their best ball at Shea this year. 1-1 to Ochoa.
Mets have won 14 of their last 19 games here at Shea Stadium. And this the long homestand, longest of the year for them, and ends up having in it this 4-game series, which to this point is the most important series the Mets have played this year.
Change up, swing and a miss. A ball at 2 strikes. Maybe the most important series they've played in a couple of years. Ochoa in the hole, 1-2. Mets trail by 2. Hundley on at first, 2 outs. Still 1-2 to Alex Ochoa. Inside, ball 2, 2-2. Alex, you could see that left leg. He's trying to keep that front side in there. Don't be deterred by that inside fastball. There goes Hundley. Breaking ball is low, and the throw not in time. Todd Hundley stealing second base. That's his first stolen base of the year.
Martinez, not believing he's going to take off here, did not pay much attention. Good pitch to steal on, as Fletcher had to get down low on the breaking ball to get it, and he was off the mark when he came up. See, Hundley gets a pretty good break right there because Martinez just wasn't looking over.
Todd Hundley with his 8th major league stolen base. Most he had 3 in 1992. So Hundley surprising Martinez by stealing second.
It's part of the leadership qualities we were talking about. That's Todd on his own, paying attention to the game, seeing Martinez not watching, getting a good lead, getting himself down to second base.
3-2 pitch, change up, gets Ochoa. 4 strikeouts for Martinez, still 4-2 Expos. We're back after this from your Tri-State Jeep and Eagle dealer. Top of the 7th inning, 4-2. Montreal ahead, and predictably, Pete Harnisch is out of there, working on only 3 days rest. Paul Byrd is the pitcher. He will try to work 1 successful inning. The pitching spot due up 3rd in the bottom of the 7th as Paul tries to hold the Expos. And holding your attention for the next 3 innings, Gary Thorne.
We'll try.
You will.
We will try. Mike Lansing, Cliff Floyd, and Darren Fletcher. Mets need to have their 5th consecutive come from behind effort to continue their win streak at 5 in this ball game, with a 4-2 deficit right now as we go with Mike Lansing leading it off here. Lansing singled and scored in the 1st on the 3-run homer by Henry Rodriguez. Other run came in the 3rd inning. 1-0 the count on Lansing, batting at .311. 1 single tonight, pops that one up shallow right field. Vizcaino backing up. Ochoa coming on, and Ochoa will put it away, and Lansing's the first out here in the 7th inning.
Left fielder Cliff Floyd.
Bird's last outing came on the 14th, and he pitched in game 2 of that doubleheader against Houston. Went 2 1/3, gave up only 1 hit, walked none, and struck out 2. Paul has been effective. 1 run off him in his last 10 games, covering 14 2/3 innings. Pitch misses outside to Floyd, singled in the 3rd and scored that 4th Expo run. An unearned run on the error committed on the drop fly ball. Batting at .293 right now. Six have been left on by the Expos in this game. Have had the better of it base runner wise. Mets have stranded 4. 1 each in the last 3 innings in scoring position. 2 ball, 1 strike count on Floyd. Pete Harnisch, the 6 innings, gave up 4 runs, 3 earned on 9 hits. He did not walk a batter, and he struck out 4. This one ripped to right field, a rising line drive, goodbye home run. Floyd has been tearing the ball up of late, and Cliff Floyd gives the Expos a 5-2 lead.
Looked like a straight change from Byrd. Cliff Floyd changed directions on the change. That ball a seed out of here. Man. Yep, change up. Whew. That ball was hammered.
Still going up when it went out.
Yeah.
On a line drive that never was very high, but it was hard. So the 5th run comes on the 10th hit, 3rd home run of the season for Floyd. Bird gets it fouled back by Darren Fletcher, the catcher. Montreal Expos coming into this game, one of the reasons they've got it done offensively has been the home run ball. They have used it all season long successfully. Coming into the game, they were ranked in home runs 8th in the league. National League scoreboard for you. Marlins winning over the Phillies, who right now are just helpless on the field, literally. Darren Fletcher takes that one outside. Braves looking to extend their lead on the road trip. Big game for the Dodgers and Giants later. Our Toyota American League scoreboard. Red Sox big win streak being threatened by Baltimore. 2 balls, 2 strikes on Fletcher. And the catcher just whiffs on that one. Whatever he was looking for, that wasn't it. Bird gets the strikeout, 2 down.
Fletcher, the catcher, couldn't catch up with that fastball. That was one of those flat-footed waves right there.
Long after the ball had passed.
Yeah.
2 down now, bases empty. And here's Rodriguez. Had the other Montreal home run, his 27th in the first inning. Has since reached on an error and is doubled. .277, 76 runs batted in. Bird's pitch, the off speed. It's over that one, a ball and a strike. Bird with a 1-1 down the left field line. Gilkey had been playing over the other way. Gets there and puts it away in fair territory. So Rodriguez retired, but the one-out homer by Floyd, the solo shot, has added another run, and the Expos have upped their lead. 7th inning stretch after this from your local Dodge dealer. Edgardo Alfonso takes the first pitch for a strike, bottom of the 7th inning. A 5-2 lead for the Montreal Expos in this first to 4, out hitting the Mets 10-6. Alfonso drills that one to left field. Floyd over. Nice running catch. Cliff Floyd on Edgardo Alfonso, one away.
Now, he made that nice running catch because he was out of position. He was playing Alfonso in left center field, and as any good golfer would do, he replaces his divot. But he was in left center field. The changeup that Alfonso pulled, and Floyd makes the play. Nice play. But a play that he had to make. He started out way in left center.
And very deep. Bounced into the mid of Darren Fletcher.
And see, Gary, that's why outfielders, a guy like Cliff Floyd, you have to play guys straight away with a pitcher like Martinez. And the reason for that is you can't take the changeup away from him. The changeup's going to be pulled by right-handed batters. So therefore, if you're playing straight away, you defend the fastball, the curveball, and the changeup. If you're playing him into left center, you're defending the fastball and the breaking ball away. But the changeup, you got to always think Martinez is going to throw that, so you have to defend him the same way, and not the overshift.
That's a primary pitch for Martinez,
yeah,
so it's
absolutely.
not going to go away.
Yeah.
2 ball, 1 strike count on Ray Ordonez. I'd like to pick those numbers up at Shea. He's had a single tonight. Came in the 5th inning. Fouls this one back off Martinez. 4 strikeouts, no walks for the 24-year-old right-hander, looking for his 8th win of the year. He's 7-4. Finished 14-10 last season. And trying to beat the Mets for the 9th time without a loss. Ordonez with a 2-2. Breaking ball down to third. That's a fair ball. Long throw, Andrews. And got him on the tag. It pulled Rodriguez off the bag, but he slapped the tag on.
Yeah, because the throw pulls him off the bag. Nice play by Andrews. The long throw. Watch the left foot. Comes off the bag, slap with the glove. Good play by Henry Rodriguez.
Shades of Cliff Floyd
Yeah.
at first base.
Yeah.
Todd Hundley and he collided, and Floyd's hand became a bunch of broken bones that cost him so much time. That time slapping the tag on. Rodriguez got it away without damage. Andy Tomberlin is the pinch hitter now, as Bird has worked his inning and is out of there, giving up the home run to Floyd. The one hit he surrendered, and he struck out one. Numbers for Andy Tomberlin, who's had limited chances since being called up. Grounded down to third. Andrews is moving in. Nice short hop, running throw, and he got him. So some good help defensively in a 1-2-3 inning. We've completed 7 at Shea. Take a look at the Miller line score, and we'll be right back.
Fans, join us this Saturday, July 20th, for Toyota Cap Night. Everyone at the 7:10 game against these Montreal Expos will receive a Mets cap, compliments of Toyota. For tickets, call 718-507-TIXX during business hours, or stop by the Mets clubhouse shops. All right, festive evening here at Shea. First to 4. The Mets trail by 3, however. And who better to stop the bleeding than Doug Henry in the 8th?
I'll get your head out over the plate.
Henry the 8th is the pitcher for the Mets. Gary joining me in song between innings for I'm Henry the 8th I Am.
Which fortunately none of you got to hear. So thank us for that.
Who sang that? Nilsson? Was that Nilsson?
Oh, wasn't that Hermits?
Hermits?
No.
I'm Henry the 8th I Am. The guy who had to hear that was John Calabrese, our
yeah,
our
we caught you
manager.
that time, John. Don't worry.
John using the excuse of checking the bullpen.
Yeah.
Here at Shea. Yeah, right, John. The old bullpen trick, huh? Get your eyes out of the stands.
No problem, John. No problem. See, that's the kind of stuff we usually have on our preview screen we were telling you about.
Exactly.
So we wanted to show you the types of things that you rarely get to see and rarely want to. Rondell White batting at .292 against Doug Henry. A 5-2 lead for the Expos as we go to the 8th inning. That's bullpen we mentioned has been effective of late. They come in with the 5th best bullpen ERA in the National League. Paul Bird giving up the run on the homer in the inning that he worked. Off-speed pitch misses inside. White, Santangelo, and Andrews due up. Long ball, which the Mets have not given a lot of up this season, is what's cost them in this one with Rodriguez, that 3-run homer in the first inning, and then the solo shot by Floyd accounting for 4 of the 5 runs up there on the board. That's with the 4th fewest home runs surrendered as a team. Harry Manuel far side, Jeff Juden closest to you. Pedro Martinez having gone the distance so far for the Expos. 1-2 delivery to Rondell White. Breaking ball just missed. 2 balls, 2 strikes. White the 0 for 2 in this game. He couldn't have come back at a more opportune time with Alou going out with a hamstring problem just as Rondell White was getting back into the lineup. 2-2 and bounced by Henry. Full count. Montreal starters have not won a game since the All-Star break, going 0-3 with a 4.3 earned run average as a group. Martinez trying to put an end to that tonight and an end to the modest 2-game slide the Expos are in on this long road trip. 3-2. Reaching for it and got a base hit over Vizcaino's glove into the gap. How far is that going to go? A speedster. White making the turn will stop at second base. A sharp leadoff double here in the 8th inning for Rondell White.
We mentioned earlier that Felipe Alou is called White Thunder Hands, and the reason his hands just explode through the strike zone. That ball low and away, and it's by Vizcaino before he can react to it. Nice play by Alex Ochoa to hold Rondell to a double.
So the leadoff man on here in the 8th inning with nobody out for F.P. Santangelo. 4th double of the season picked up by White, but remember he's coming back after a long injury. That's the 11th hit now for the Montreal Expos in this game. Santangelo's taken the callers. He's gone 0 for 3. He will be walked with Andrews, who's gone 3 for 3 on deck. First base open here. Will be the first walk given up by the Met pitchers in this game.
Now, I'm not too sure about this intentional walk right now. I mean, you have two guys warming up. Shane Andrews may elect to bunt. And if he doesn't, he has 3 hits on the evening. Alice Green electing to walk Santangelo. The problem with that is if Andrews gets a base hit, then you have Martinez bunting. If Alou doesn't. Now he's going to, Mike Cubbage playing everybody back. They're not going to bunt with Martinez on deck. I think the Mets are looking for the bunt. But that's another reason why you wouldn't walk Santangelo.
Yeah. You're trying to set up a double play if you're walking him for any reason here. Shane Andrews up 3 for 3 in the game. Corners are cheated in here. Does not show bunt and takes the pitch inside. Martinez, of course, has come out in the on-deck circle. Whether they mean it or not, he's out there. 3 for 3. The 2 singles and a double, and stranded all 3 times that he has been on base. He's a .299 hitter with runners in scoring position. First and second occupied, nobody out. Andrews a 1-0 count. And he rifles that one to right field. Ochoa is not going to have a play. On one hop, comes down with it. White will score. Going over to third base, Santangelo, and an RBI single. Picked up by Andrews, who has a 4 for 4 game. And the Expos have a 6-2 lead.
And see, that's another reason why that intentional walk, when you're trailing by 3, you open up things for a big inning. I just do not think that that was a shrewd move by Dallas Green. We talked about it before. We're talking about it afterwards. And here's a guy who's 3 for 3 on the night. There are too many things the Expos can do in that situation. I mean, FP Santangelo, we're not talking about, you know, the reincarnation of Mickey Mantle here. Pretty good hitter, but.
And that is the RBI that makes it 6-2. Now runners on at first and third. Here is Pedro Martinez, and the Mets do look for the bunt here. Alfonso moving in at third. He already has a couple of sacrifices and called out on strikes. Charging at the corners. Pitches down low from Henry. Big night for Andrews in this game. Martinez checking with Jerry Manuel down at third for the signs here. Andrews now with 40 runs batted in. On at first base. Lead runner at third is Santangelo. Alfonso starts out even with the bag at third. The throw being made over to first.
You know what that does with first and second, nobody out, it gives a pitcher less maneuverability to work a lineup. If he's pitching around a batter with a runner on at second and first base, there's no telling what a batter might do.
Another good bunt. Henry's got to play this. This guy, no covering, the third sacrifice of the game. Still at third base, Santangelo.
You've got a guy like Santangelo who can go for a bad ball, go out of the strike zone, pop a ball up. But when Andrews gets the hit, that means Grudzielanek could put this game out of reach.
And by the way, the intentional pass means more likely than not you're going to get to him at the top of the order.
That's right. That's right. You've almost guaranteed that Grudzielanek will come up in this inning, and he leads the Expos in hits, third in the National League.
And that one gets away all the way to the backstop. That's another thing that can happen. Santangelo scores. It is a 7-2 game on the wild pitch by Doug Henry, who's having a disastrous inning. And down to third base goes Andrews.
Well, in fairness to the Mets bullpen, this is an uncharacteristic inning lately. For the last 6 weeks, they have just been terrific. But this is one of those innings from hell for Doug Henry.
Infield moves in. Grudzielanek, .319 hitter, takes the strike, a ball and a strike. So the Mets will try and go to the plate here in a ground ball. Andrews not a speedy runner. On at third. 1-1 the count. Zolanic lines that one to right. Ochoa was in, makes the running catch. There'll be no play at the plate. Andrews had wandered off 4 or 5 steps and does not tag.
That's bad base running by Shane Andrews at third base. Jerry Manuel, the third base coach, is talking to him right now. The reason that he would try to score twofold. The Expos are up by 5, and Ochoa catches the ball around his ankles. If the ball drops, he walks home anyway, because that would mean that Ochoa would have to catch the ball on a short hop, and he wouldn't be in a position to throw. Well, when he catches the ball in the air, he's not in a position to throw. Watch.
There's a line drive center field by Lansing. It'll be hauled in. And by not running the bases properly, it cost Montreal a run.
That's right.
The Expos have a 7-2 lead, though, adding a couple here. Now this from your local Chevy Geo dealer. A 7-2 lead in this first of 4 going to the bottom of the 8th inning as the Montreal Expos keep adding. In our Nobody Beats the Wiz game summary, Martinez still on the mound. Maybe a complete game chance here. Rodriguez, that first inning home run, is 27th. Floyd has had a big night. The Mets, Todd Hundley got his 25th. 1 for 9 for the Mets with runners on base tonight. Not been able to move him around.
Now this Martinez is very, very tough, and particularly on the Mets.
Lance Johnson, who's had an 0 for 3, will get rid of that here, maybe. Diving attempt by Rondell White goes by. Floyd's got to go back to the wall. On his way to third base. Relay throw. Solanic not in time. He keeps going after the record.
15 triples on the season. The Mets lead the majors in triples with 32. Lance Johnson has about 48% of those. A diving try by White. You can take those types of chances when you're 5 runs up. Lance Johnson with triple number 15, and that is a career high for Lance Johnson. He likes triples, the guy.
And he can get them.
Can he ever?
Most in the majors. He's on at third. Vizcaino with nobody out. Vizcaino towards second base. It'll get a run in. Played there by Lansing. They take the out. Credit Vizcaino with the RBI on the ground ball out. And Lance Johnson crosses the plate with the third run. It's 7-3. 70th time Lance has scored. That's 8th in the National League in runs. Clears the bases with 1 away. And Bernard Gilkey coming up. With that triple, Lance Johnson is more than doubled now. Those trying to catch him, which they won't. Marquise Grissom and Steve Finley both have 7, and they are tied for second in triples in the National League. Martinez goes 1-1 on Gilkey. Strikeout victim 3 times in this game by Martinez. 3 of the 4 strikeouts have been against Gilkey, who's behind on the count here, 1-2. No walks, 4 strikeouts for him. Not this time. Right field. Santangelo backing up shy of the warning track. 2 down. Martinez has 2 complete games, 1 shutout thrown this season. This is his 20th start. 2 down, bases empty. Todd Hundley, another big ball game, a home run and a single. 2 RBIs on the dinger in the first inning off Martinez, who has given up 11 home runs this year. Hundley only one of 3 left-handers to get the long ball off Martinez. Two down, chopped foul at the plate.
That ball was almost fair.
Yeah, Gary Darling, the home plate umpire, was going to wait on the call.
I think Darren Fletcher grabbed that ball too soon. If he lets it bounce, he may get a favorable carom. See, why catch it if it's still in foul territory?
You saw Darling moving around, so he'd get lined up with the first baseline. If it was out there, he was going to call it fair.
let it plop around there, kind of nudge it a little bit with your left foot. Give it some help.
2-1. Now, we were talking honesty earlier.
Yeah,
Remember that?
yeah, but that's gamesmanship.
Gamesmanship.
Honest to a fault, pal. But that, however, is gamesmanship. Of course.
You can see how we rationalize these things away. It's not a problem for us to do that.
Anyway, I'm not playing anymore. Just talk about it.
There you go. It's not as though you would have done it.
Oh, no.
Huntley with a 2-2. Second base, Lansing over. Gobbles it up, makes the flip, and that'll do it. Mets get a run. Johnson led it off with a triple, came across to score, but the Mets are still down, and this one's 7-3. Now this from your local Honda dealer. Back here at Shea Stadium, going to the 9th inning. Gary Thornton, McCarver, the Mets down. Montreal on top, 7-3. Right back here with you tomorrow night. 7:30 airtime. Real Cormier and Jason Isringhausen will be going in Game 2, and we'll have it for you. Cliff Floyd will lead it off. Darren Fletcher and Henry Rodriguez due up. Doug Henry will stay on. Second inning of relief. 2 runs, 2 hits off him, and a runner left on in the 8th inning. Floyd had the home run, his third, a line shot in his last at bat. Was also picked up a single, so he's got a 2-for-4 game going, putting his average to 293. He's letting the bat do the speaking for him here. With a chance to play. That's the way he hits it. 0-2.
Tommy Harper, the batting instructor of the Expos, has talked to Cliff Floyd about not picking up his front foot.
Henry gets it.
He picked it up a little there. There's Tommy. What a great ball player he was for Cincinnati and Boston, and he was really one of the best kept secrets around for a long time. Right around 500 stolen bases. I don't know his exact numbers, but he was a terrific ball player. Took one of the greatest leads from first base of any base runner I've ever seen.
What aggressive ball players.
Ooh, he was that.
He was that. Darren Fletcher, 2-for-4, a couple of singles and a run scored. Did that in the first inning. Henry gets the strike on the outside corner. Evens the count up. 1 ball, 1 strike. You're looking ahead. Husky, Ochoa, and Alfonso due up for the Mets in the bottom half of the 9th inning. They've been out hit 12-7 in this game. A chopper. Ray Ordonez had a wait on the multi-hopper. That'll retire Fletcher. 2 down. Two away, nobody on, and Henry Rodriguez. The 2 things he does best: hit home runs and doubles. He's done 1 of each in this game. Second in home runs and 6th in doubles in the league. Stands in here with 2 down and the bases empty. And he rips that one towards the gap in right center. Lance Johnson over to get it. Makes the nice backhand stop. That'll hold him to a single. But it looks like Rodriguez is coming out of his funk at the plate. He's hit the ball hard and had good at-bats here in this game.
3 for 5. Single, double, 3-run homer in the first inning.
And hasn't struck out.
No.
Which he'd been doing a lot of. Rondell White has contributed a double and a run scored in the 8th inning in this game. Doug Henry with a slider, misses outside. 1-0 count on White. Watching him run is somewhat like watching Mookie Wilson running in his heyday. Talk about guys who can fly around the bases.
Mookie Wilson was one of the most enjoyable sights going from first to third of any player I've ever seen. And without a doubt, the most popular player in Mets history. That's out of a lot of popular players. But Mookie was the guy.
1-1 chop to third. Alfonso's going to have to hustle the throw over to first. And he got it there in time with a little help at first from Butch Husky. Bottom of the 9th coming after this from Miller Brewing. Pedro Martinez goes to work. 9th inning. Butch Husky leads it off. Martinez looking for a complete game win. He's given up 3 runs on 7 hits. Husky, Ochoa, and Alfonso. Rich is at a single and a double tonight. Takes it outside, ball 2. Martinez has not walked a batter, striking out 4. He had a 2-hit shutout here in New York on May 1 in the victory against the Mets this season. 2-0. He's way up high. 3 balls and no strikes. Taking all the way here. Fastball strike in the outside corner. And he gets the ground ball to third. Andrews up with it. That was a big comeback right there. 1 down. Husky retired, 1 away, bottom of the 9th inning, and Alex Ochoa 0 for 2, denied a hit. Bruce Solanic made an outstanding play on him back in the 4th inning. Hasn't even hit the 100-pitch mark yet. He has been outstanding. Todd Hundley got the home run in the 1st inning. Chopped down to third. Andrews backing up. No play on this one. Alex Ochoa makes a turn. He'll stay as Floyd will get it back in.
Just a reminder, folks, that Mets Baseball 96 has been brought to you by New Miller Beer, the brand new beer from Miller with big flavor that goes down easy. By your local Honda dealer. Also by Coca-Cola, always playing, always Coca-Cola. And by your Tri-State Ford dealer.
Eight hits now for the Mets in the game. Runner on at first base, Ochoa. Edgardo Alfonso 0 for 3. Batting at .250, and Martinez gets the strike. Martinez had that other complete game against Cincinnati. Worked back on June 14 in a 6-1 win. And that lone complete game shutout, the one against the Mets. Here's Zelanik. Lansing. It's over. So Pedro Martinez will pick up the win and go 8-4. Harnish takes the loss. He'll be 5-7. All right, Budweiser player of the game, Pedro Martinez. No walks, 4 strikeouts, 3 runs on 8 hits against him as he beats the Mets 9 times now in his career without a loss.
Here are the final totals for tonight's game.
So the Expos win it 7-3, and closed captioning of tonight's game has been underwritten by WWOR TV and the U.S. Department of Education. This has been a presentation of WWOR TV, UPN 9 Sports. For all the gang here at Shea tonight, and for Gary Thorne and I'm Tim McCarver. We will see you tomorrow night, everybody.